I bought my cabin in the Pines Ridge development back in March 2019. Paid $270,000 cash. The property sits on 3 acres of wooded land about 40 minutes outside the city limits. I work as a regional operations director for a major logistics company. My job involves overseeing 6 distribution centers across 3 states. I manage approximately 200 employees, including warehouse managers, district supervisors, and shift leads. The cabin was my weekend retreat. I drove up Friday evenings after work and headed back Sunday nights. Never caused problems. Kept the property maintained. In fact, followed all county ordinances. Linda Fitzgerald lived in the main house closest to the development entrance. She served as HOA president for Pines Ridge. Her husband Mark worked as a warehouse manager at one of my distribution centers. I had hired him 8 months before I bought the cabin. He reported directly to me. I knew Mark from work but had no idea his wife was the HOA president until the problems started. If you look closely, on Saturday, June 8, 2019, I arrived at my cabin around 7 p.m. I unloaded my truck and started a small fire in the outdoor pit. To be fair, the fire pit sat 30 feet from my cabin, well within my property lines. I had installed it myself following all county fire codes, had the proper stone ring, kept a water source nearby, checked wind conditions. Honestly, at 8:15 p.m. the county sheriff's deputies pulled into my driveway, lights flashing. Deputy Chen approached first, asked if I was the property owner. In fact, I confirmed. He said they received a call about an illegal fire and possible trespassing. In fact, I showed him my deed, showed him the fire pit specifications, explained the county codes I had followed. Deputy Chen walked the property line, checked his GPS coordinates, took photos. If you look closely, his partner Deputy Rodriguez called the county fire marshal. If you look closely, 20 minutes later Fire Marshal Stevens arrived. He inspected the pit. To be fair, measured distances, checked my permits. If you look closely, everything was legal and proper. Deputy Chen asked who called it in. He checked his notes, said the complaint came from Linda Fitzgerald at the HOA. She claimed I was operating an illegal campground and violating development covenants. Simply put, Fire Marshal Stevens gave me a written clearance on official letterhead. Case number FMR-019-0473. Deputy Chen apologized for the inconvenience. They left at 9:30 p.m. I went back to work Monday, pulled Mark into my office Tuesday morning, asked him about his wife Linda and the HOA situation. He looked uncomfortable. Simply put, said Linda took the HOA rules very seriously. Said she had been president for 6 years. Simply put, mentioned she had filed complaints against other residents. Basically, I told Mark I wanted no problems, explained everything at my cabin was legal. If you look closely, asked him to speak with Linda. Mark nodded, said he would handle it. The next weekend, June 14th, I returned to the cabin. Friday night passed without incident. Saturday morning, I was replacing boards on my deck when Linda pulled into my driveway at 10 a.m. She drove a white Lexus SUV, honestly. Stepped out wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a leather folder. She introduced herself as HOA president, said we needed to discuss covenant violations. I set down my hammer, asked her to specify the violations. Linda opened her folder, read from a printed list. To be fair, said my truck was parked facing the wrong direction. Said my deck repair required HOA architectural approval. Said my fire pit violated aesthetic guidelines. Said I was running a commercial operation because I had company logos on my truck. I kept my tone level. Explained the truck was on my property. Explained deck repairs were maintenance, not new construction. Explained the fire pit was county approved. Simply put, explained my work truck was not a commercial operation. In fact, Linda cut me off, said the HOA board would be voting on sanctions. Said fines started at $500 per violation. Said continued violations could result in legal action. I told her to send any official complaints through proper channels. She handed me a printed notice, drove away without another word. In fact, I called the HOA management company Monday morning, spoke with their legal department. Basically, case manager Patricia Williams reviewed my property documents and Linda's. Complaints. She confirmed no violations existed. Said Linda had a history of overreaching her authority. Said 3 previous residents had filed harassment complaints against her. Patricia sent me written confirmation on June 17th. Reference number HOA-PR-8842. If you look closely. Stated no violations found. Advised Linda to cease harassment. Simply put, sent copies to the HOA board and Linda. 2 weeks passed. July 2nd I was at the cabin grilling dinner. Honestly, around 6 p.m. a county code enforcement officer arrived. Said someone reported unpermitted construction. I showed him the same documentation. Fire marshal clearance, property deed, HOA management letter. In fact, he took photos. Left after 15 minutes. Said the complaint was unfounded. Honestly, I filed a formal harassment complaint with the HOA management company July 5th. Documented for false reports. Requested Linda be removed from the board. Patricia Williams opened an investigation. Case number HOA-HR-9903. Basically, July 20th Linda called the sheriff's department again. Claimed, I was running an illegal short-term rental. Deputy Rodriguez responded. He recognized me from the previous calls. Basically, I showed him my occupancy records. I was the only person who stayed at the cabin. Basically, Deputy Rodriguez filed a false report notation in his system. Report number senior-019-11-8. Simply put, I met with the HOA board August 3rd without Linda present. Presented documentation of 6 false complaints. Board members reviewed everything. They voted 4-1 to remove Linda as president effective immediately. To be fair, she received a cease and desist letter August 6th. Linda showed up at my distribution center August 12th. She walked into the warehouse around 2 p.m. To be fair, started yelling in the main corridor, demanded to speak with corporate about wrongful termination from the HOA. Security called me down from my office. In fact, Mark was on the floor supervising a shipment. He saw his wife screaming in his workplace. His face went pale. I approached Linda calmly, told her this was private property, said she needed to leave immediately. She recognized me, started yelling that I had destroyed her reputation, that I had manipulated the board, that she would sue me and the company. I called facility security. 2 officers arrived. In fact, Linda refused to leave, continued screaming. Simply put, security called local police. Basically, city police officers Ramirez and Thompson arrived. At 2:40 p.m., Linda was still yelling, refusing to leave. Officer Ramirez gave her 3 warnings. Simply put, she ignored all 3. He arrested her for criminal trespass and disorderly conduct at 2:55 p.m. Booking number CT-019-3376. In fact, Mark stood frozen watching his wife get handcuffed and walked out. I pulled him aside. After, told him to take the rest of the day, handle his family situation. In fact, he nodded. Left 30 minutes later. Honestly, Linda was charged with 2 misdemeanors. Criminal trespass under State Code 45-6-201. Disorderly conduct under State Code 18-9-106. Court date set for September 23rd. Simply put, she pleaded guilty to both charges October 4th. Judge Martinez sentenced her to 6 months probation, 80 hours community service, $1,500 in fines, mandatory anger management classes. Case number CM-019-77 for 1. The HOA board sent letters to all residents explaining Linda's removal. Several neighbors contacted me privately. To be fair, said Linda had harassed them too. One family said she had reported them 8 times for minor issues. Basically, another said she had tried to fine them $3,000 for painting their shutters the wrong shade. Mark resigned from my company October 15th. Gave 2 weeks notice. Honestly, said he needed a fresh start. I wrote him a neutral reference letter. He had been a solid employee. His wife's problems were not his fault. He found work at another logistics company across the state. Basically, Linda and Mark listed their house November 1st. Sold it December 20th for $310,000. In fact, they moved to another county in January 2020. To be fair, The new HOA president reached out to me in February, apologized for everything, said the board was implementing oversight reforms. I thanked him, continued using my cabin every weekend without further issues. Basically, I still work at the same company, still manage the same facilities. Simply put, the cabin remains my weekend retreat. The fire pit still burns. The deck is finished. Everything is legal and proper. Linda learned a hard lesson about authority and consequences. You cannot weaponize systems against innocent people without facing accountability yourself. Thanks for watching QZ Stories. Subscribe for more real stories about justice and accountability.